What I thought we were spending a little bit of time on today is where NASA's going from here forwards. The assembly is complete. We're just doing science. We're sending up research. No country in history has had more than one manned spacecraft operating off its soil ever. And so now, within 2019, we're going to have 2 vehicles operating. And so that's a big deal. In June of 2022, we're going to put crew members on board Orion. And we're going to send 4 people around the moon on the very first flight. And the whole point is we can establish a permanent lunar base near the south pole of the moon. To be able to have a base of operations that allow us to do sustained operations. Just like you wouldn't go ahead and put on a new pair of boots, combat boots, and go out and run PT for 10 miles. You probably want to break them in first. Well, the moon is our, not only our science location, our learn how to use the technologies there, be able to figure out how to use these resources there, but it's also to prove our equipment works. And so if we can have our habitats, our hatches, our rovers, our gears with the wheels, the suits and the joints on our suits not get trashed by lunar dust, we figure out how to solve those problems, then when we go to Mars it's a lot easier because the moon has no wind, it has no rain, it has no erosion, it has no waves lapping up and turning coral rocks into sand. It is just like it was when the asteroids and the comets and everything hit the moon and made those craters. It's just like that, it's jagged rock. And so it is the worst situation in the solar system for humans to go to. And it tore up our equipment on Apollo, and we were only there for a couple days. So if we can make all these different systems, especially ones that move and have mechanical parts, work in this really harsh environment, we go to Mars that has a small atmosphere, that has wind, that had water, then we don't have to worry about that equipment failing because of those types of problems. 8 years ago, NASA started a program called Commercial Crew Program, where we give seed money and give out contracts to work with industry and commercial partners to make a vehicle. We did it with our cargo vehicles, and that's where we ended up with the Cygnus vehicle and the SpaceX Cargo Dragon that are going to space station, and I had one of each on my mission. So NASA gives some money to them, they bring some of their own, and together we make a vehicle and we buy services from them. Rather than NASA just making the contract like we're doing with Orion, we find a contractor, we are the program manager, and we manage the whole thing in-house. The fact that we have definitive proof that there's water on Mars. Okay, so that means that there maybe at some point was life on Mars, and it's the closest planet to Earth. They say within our solar system, only in distance, but also in formation, I guess would be the right word. And so, is that a possibility that we can go ahead and make Mars a place where we can start habitating humans? Because the sun consumes its fuel and it expands ever so slowly. And right now we're in that little spot where there's the sun over there, and it's not too hot, and it's not too cold, and Earth is right here in the middle. And that over the eons is going to do like this. And someday we're going to have SPS 5000 to go outside. And so at some point the humans may want to figure out how to live somewhere else before we get there. And so, is there anything in the soil that we can use to actually start, growing our own food there? Can we use the water that's there to be able to break that up and have hydrogen fuel to be able to fuel our rockets to come home, and oxygen to be able to breathe while we're there? All technologies that have implications for further deep space travel and going out beyond our solar system with humans at some point. Sometimes my kids think I am. I have not. And on my 2 flights, I have to admit, I did not see anything that I thought was from another planet. But I certainly look, when we go up into space, we don't have all the lights of the city, and we don't have the atmosphere to make the stars, the faint stars, look even fainter. And you get up there and you see the gazillions of stars up there, you go, wow, there's got to be maybe a chance that there's something out there, because the stars are just the suns. We don't see the planets. And our sun is really small compared to all of the suns that are out there in the galaxy. And so if we have 9 planets around our tiny little sun, how many planets and what size are they around all these other monster suns that we see out in the night sky? So definitely a possibility. Yeah, I was focused on being getting a Marine Corps pilot, becoming a Marine Corps pilot, not losing my aviation contract, not going to TBS and poking my eyes out and ruining it that way. Keep my vision good. It was something I was fascinated with since I was a kid. I thought it was super cool, but mean, I've never seen realistic. I'm not just a skinny kid from California, you know. But I was amazed that, you know, I kept an interest and I kept my eye on it, you know, just out of curiosity. The shuttle was going in its heyday. And so, you know, getting the Marine Corps, he did well enough in flight school to get jets. Hey, that was awesome, you know. And I go to the fleet, and I'm able to go to Top Gun and other things, and going, you know, moving up, becoming an instructor in my squadron. Wow, this is cool. I can apply to test pilot school and actually be, you know, maybe get it. But you know, as you guys remember from last year, you know, I applied to test pilot school, and they didn't need any F-18 guys, Marine Corps F-18 guys, for 2 years. So I applied. It wasn't happening. I thought it was, you know, just me, but you know, finding out it was actually they didn't need any F-18 Marine Corps guys. So I finally get accepted there, and then I go to the school and I walk in. They got plaques on the wall of all the test pilot school classes before, and I see the Alan Shepards and the John Glenn's, and you know, and it's just like, okay, I'm way out of my league here. You know, that was my, you know, initial impression. But and I'm going there and doing, you know, well enough and graduating. So every step of the way made me more and more qualified. And so, you know, whether it's hard work or divine, you know, prevention, you know, I was just fortunate enough to be in a position where I could apply. But I'm just one, you know, very small option for tracks to get to NASA. You know, we like I mentioned, we need engineers, we need, you know, mission controllers, we need researchers. The astronaut track is just a very small part of what, you know, NASA's doing. And if you look at the bios of the people that are there, you know, maybe 5% or 10% are actually the old school test pilot method that I went in. We've got geologists and researchers, we've got astrophysicists, medical doctors, full up just electrical engineers, mechanical engineers. We've got an astronomer, we've got a veterinarian that are astronauts. And it's just people that love doing what they're doing, excel at what they're doing. They got a great education and then applied it and did well in that field. That's the number one thing that NASA looks for. And they just had the drive to excel in other areas as well. And we're well-rounded. You know, we've got concert pianists. We've got people that climb Mount Everest, people that, you know, rebuild houses and old cars like I did. You know, so, you know, enjoy your life and your career. And if you happen to have an interest in NASA, you want to apply, great. And that's what, you know, we're looking for, people that are, you know, good in their field. Thank you all for coming. Hopefully you learned something.